How's it going, Rifters? It's been a while for me. I got my wisdom tooth taken out, so I am in a little bit of pain. It's been a while since I made a video of me speaking about something, but I wanted to talk about the errata that was updated on January 14th. As of recording, this was yesterday, and this errata. There was some stuff that went on, and if you don't know what an errata is in like a TCG, it's pretty much a revamp or an edit of existing cards, which can be really hard to implement for casual players, just because you would have to keep up with this stuff. Unfortunately, like this isn't extremely uncommon in TCGs, but regardless, it's still a pain in the butt to figure out if you're getting into a card game and you read a card and you play it and then you realize it doesn't work as intended. Now, these erratas are pretty functional, or they're a big change on how cards function, so they're pretty important, and I'm probably just going to go over two of the big ones. And in this case, the two big ones will be Falling Star and Acathian Rain. So we'll look up Falling Star right now. It says do this twice. Deal 3 to a unit. So you're probably thinking, oh, okay, I get to do 3 damage 2 times. That is correct. So this is happening twice due to the wording of do this twice. It seems straightforward, like I said, for most players. You just shoot out 3/3 to 1 unit, 3 to 2 separate units. Whatever the case may be, when you choose your targets. But what this does, due to the wording of do this twice, is add what is known as a reflexive trigger. The same thing goes for Acathian Rain. You're doing something 6 times, and then 6 times of what you were doing is deal 2 to a unit. So this is being done 6 times. And once again, this has the do this X amount of times. So what does this mean in regards to the errata? Well, now the errata is saying they're cutting the do this section and just the actual, I guess, what is being done to straight up just happen. Deal 3 to a unit, deal 3 to a unit. This is cut out now. Same thing with the Acathian Rain. It's just listed, 6 times, deal 2 to a unit. It doesn't say to do it 6 times. It's just listing it 6 times. So I'll go ahead and explain this in like a visual manner. Just because if you're new and if you're still not understanding like the before and after, I think it's important to show that, and also how this can help you in your games, and kind of what this means for future cards and existing cards, and kind of give examples of a situation I came across when I played it, or I should say played against it. And also, I know that like visual learning, instead of just speaking about what it can do, helps a lot of people. So I have these 2 blank cards. Let's imagine that I am a player playing a fairy deck, and I have Falling Star right here. I will cast my Falling Star, I'll pay for it. Now what happens here before, this is the before the errata, is that Falling Star, we're going to go over here, gets put on the chain. Do this twice. Okay, so here, what Falling Star is attempting to do once it is resolved, once it is done resolving, is putting 2 things onto a pending chain due to the do this twice wording. So here I have a window as the opponent to react. Maybe I win wallet. If I do win wallet, it is not going to resolve. So the do 3 twice to a unit will not be added to the pending chain. But let's say I do let it resolve. Okay, I got nothing. It's gonna Falling Star will resolve, and what Falling Star is doing is adding the 2 instances of deal 3 twice. So let's imagine that these 2 are on the chain. You're now dealing 3 twice. So with this instance, let's say I target it here. Now in this gap, which I will make it visible in a way, there's a gap here, right? Let's imagine this gap is now where you can play reactions, right? I can choose to discipline this person. So I'll spawn a discipline. Oops, sorry. Spawn. I choose to react on this chain here by providing a discipline to add +2 to the wielder. Let's say it's this wielder here. I'm just going to copy this over. Oh no, sorry. This wielder here. Well, whichever has the might bonus, because it looks clean. Boom. Right, I discipline here. And then my opponent's like, alright, that's cool. I have no reactions for this chain here. Okay, if they have no reactions to this chain here, this will resolve. We resolve the discipline. The opponent would draw 1, and then the 3 damage would be done. Right, so now my unit has 3 damage on it. Now the chain is pending with this instance of do 3. So it was, let's imagine it was down here. And we have an instance of, once again, the do 3 from this falling star that is resolved. I now, as the Kais'a player, or sorry, a Fury player, can choose to target this one or this one, because now this is going to start a new chain. So let's say I decide to target this one because it already has 3 damage on it, and then it dies. That is an instance of Falling Star, a Cathian Rain. Imagine that it's the same instance, except it's deal 2 instead of deal 3, except there are, 6 instances of it on the chain, and each instance you could react to, right? In between here, I could play, this is pending. This is the first instance. I could play my disciplines, on guards, whatever. And then what would happen is that they would, go down the chain, and then you would resolve, each creating their own chain. Sorry, they would not go down the chain. Each would create their own chain, and that's how you resolve every single one. Right? And this came up in situations that I would say feels bad. Here's going to be an example. So let's imagine that the Kais'a play the Falling Star. Once again, it puts 2 on the chain. This is the first one. Now, the Kaisa''s going to do the same thing where they target this wielder of water. It dies because I don't have a discipline. I don't have any counterplay. And then when it dies, my Zanyas, as the calm player, will be triggered. Zanyas goes to the trash. This is now alive because Zanyas gets triggered. This is alive. And then we would go to the second instance where my opponent could then target the new, or not the new, sorry, the wielder of water that was resolved, thus killing it. Some outplays that would show up would be with the card Retreat. That was pretty common. Cool. So let's spawn. I'm a Kais'a player, and I have a Poro at my base. My opponent has, I as a Kais'a player, or a Fury player, cast Falling Star. My opponent here can react before it adds, the 2 instances of deal 3. My opponent reacts because, I want a Falling Star 1 unit with 2 might. My opponent reacts with Retreat. What Retreat says is return the friendly unit to its owner hand. Its its owner would channel 1 rune exhausted. So I would bring Wielder of Water back to the hand, and I'd say my opponent has no reaction to the Retreat. This chain here would resolve. So Retreat resolves, and then Falling Star will resolve, and the resolution of Falling Star adds 2 instances of the 3. Falling Star says deal 3 to a unit. You have to deal 3 to a unit here. You cannot choose not to. So in this instance, my opponent would have to deal 3 to one of his units, let that resolve. It's resolved, it's killed. And then we're going to deal 3 again on the second instance that was added to the chain and deal here. So, obviously they probably wouldn't Falling Star when I have 1 unit and then it kills that unit and they have another instance where they would want to, kill their own unit. But I'm just showing an example of how Retreat was kind of used as a play around or an outplay, I guess you could say. So back to the Errata. Now, once again, there's no do this twice. It's just deal 3 to a unit. So here in this situation, so we have the Falling Star. My opponent has the Wielder of Water and the Raven Bloom student. I now, when I play this, have to either declare the 2 units or the deal 3 instances are being made, or the 1 unit that's going to take 2 times. So if I do the deal 3 2 times, I could just target the Wielder of Water twice to deal 3. It dies, and that overflow would not do anything. However, if I am the Kais'a player, I might want to target this twice to outplay a discipline, right? So now the Wielder goes to 4. If that was the case, if reflexive triggers were a thing. However, if my opponent knows I'm targeting Wielder of Water 2 times, which I have to announce with the Falling Star, they will not play their discipline because, it's going to die because it's only going to go to 4. Or the moment Falling Star is played, you can go 3 here, 3 here, the moment it is put down. And when that happens, Zanya's will trigger as both units will die. The opponent can now decide which one to save. Beforehand, if the Fury player plays Falling Star, they can kind of be very flexible in the sense of targeting what they want to die first. So if they think Wielder of Water is scarier, we would go back to the chain here, the reflexive triggers, and let this instance of 3 damage hit this first. This will resolve. It is revived. Go to the second instance. And now I can select who to kill with this one. And I'm like, yep, for sure killing the Wielder of Water. In this instance, that is not the case. I would get to, as a calm player, choose who to save if they decide to go wider. Additionally, this is a big buff to this card that is coming out in set 2. Not so fast. Counter an enemy spell or ability that chooses a friendly unit or gear. Before the Errata, Falling Star does not choose a friendly unit or gear. The 2 instances of those reflexive triggers over here did. So what Not So Fast could only do, is it could only counter one of the instances of Falling Star. Only one of these triggers could be countered. So it felt pretty bad. Additionally, if you wanted to Not So Fast a Cathian Rain, deal this 6 times, you could only stop 1 out of the 6 times. So you could only cancel 1 of them. Because a Cathian Rain, before the Errata, isn't actually dealing 2 to a unit. It's putting triggers onto the chain for those triggers to deal 2 to a unit. And it's putting it on the chain 6 times. But with the Errata, a Cathian Rain now says deal 2 to a unit, deal 2 to a unit, deal, so forth. It's going to list it 6 times. Or that's what the Errata does. It just lists it 6 times. Not So Fast now can counter the whole entire spell on the Cathian Rain. Because it's now countering an enemy spell that chooses a friendly unit. This is choosing it 6 times because there's no reflexive triggers being placed onto the chain. It's just deal 2 to a unit. The spell itself is now targeting. So Not So Fast can cancel a Cathian Rain and both instances of Falling Star. This is a pretty big buff to Calm, in my opinion. This makes me want to grind Yasuo even more with this. These changes. Falling Star is, it was a really hard card to play around, and it felt really bad with the Zanyas, knowing that your opponent would kill a unit twice through Falling Star because of Zanyas and how reflexive triggers worked. But that is not the case anymore. That's the biggest thing I wanted to go over was the Errata towards the 2 cards. There's more Erratas. One's about Draven, and it's kind of a nerf to Draven going into set 2, but I don't think it's that big of a nerf. But it's more of a rolling rephrasing / clarification. So, their patch notes, I think they go over how oh, sorry, this is just a document, and they don't really go over the explanation. But in their article, they did talk about how they really messed up with sorry, what is it? FAQ maybe? Yeah, they really talked about how they messed up about Falling Star and a Cathian Rain. Right here. It was a mistake. They shouldn't have done it. It wasn't intuitive for new players. And it made room for certain outplays, and I don't know what people's opinions are of it as a whole post Errata. But the unintentional part from Riot and it being fixed at least feels better, in my opinion. It's a little too late, just because it was taking over pretty much the entirety of set 1, and set 2 is almost here. So to be honest, I think it felt pretty terrible knowing it came out this late. Right, they worked as intended on the card, but Riot didn't want that to be. They noticed that players noticed hey, this is how triggers work and stuff, and then out kind of, I guess you would say, outsmarted Riot in that case. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. I don't think I'm going to go over the other Erratas, but if you are a new player and you read this Errata document and you're I have no idea what any of this means, and you want an explanation and you thought I did a pretty good job explaining things, let me know what clarification you might need. I hope at locals with some smaller questions with like the rollings and stuff like that, making sure no one gets screwed over. Things such as the when I attack, when I defend, triggers, timings of that, when you can play actions, when you can play reactions, stuff like that. There's a lot of steps to this game. There's a lot of triggers that can be missed. But yeah, just let me know what you guys think. Calm players. I think we were eating good. I think this is like really exciting. So let me know.